Hello all. Should I start? We are in this second session of today with invaluable speakers, our guests. I think are starting with Bedriye Begüm Nazlı and Füsun Seçer Kariptaş, and their subject is human space and user experience in Anthropocene age, which I'm very curious to listen. So I leave the stage to you.
Hello again. Our first presentation title is Others at the Threshold of Architectural Education, a reading of Archiprix Turkey competition entries and lotteries from 2013 and 2019. I will start it.
Sorry for the misinformation.
On the outputs of a threshold in architectural education, the Archiprix Turkey competition entries and winners from 2013 onwards. Archiprix Turkey is one of the long-standing and well-known competitions open for graduation projects at a national level. Since its inception in 1996, the competition has gained significant attention among architecture graduates, and for its 25th edition, there were 330 entries. Students' graduation projects are the capstone, assemblage, synthesis of their educational life. In fact, they might indirectly depict an institution's expected graduate profile. Amidst the debate about the number of architecture schools in Turkey, this study extends prior research that mapped methods, processes, and execution of diploma studios across 55 European schools of architecture, including 14 schools from Turkey. It extends the research towards the Architecture Turkey platform that manifests the studio outputs. The competition's online database includes entries and winning projects from 2013 until today, including the applicants' universities. However, from 2004 till 2012, it only includes the winning projects. This platform provides an insight into the diversity of project topics and themes across different institutions and years. This paper examines 1,532 Archiprix Turkey competition entries until today and 61 winning projects from 14 till 20 to uncover the effects of this habitus and unveil the others among schools of architecture in Turkey. There are many deep-rooted problems and questions that inspired this study, but today I will briefly share the visualization of the studio outputs and their categorization as a starting point for future research. In our previous study, we asked the school representatives about the objective of the graduation studio. All the survey entries showed that students' studio processes and outputs must evidence that students have mastered and can use all the skills, knowledge, and abilities defined in the learning outcomes of all their previous courses. In terms of duration, in terms of studio models, you can see in this visualization and distribution among the schools. As for the studio position, most schools prefer their students to work individually. Only 10 of them allow them to work in groups, and only 2 schools mandate group projects. Therefore, for most, independent design is a must for graduating. This figure depicts the 3 supervision models with their processes. Individual supervision, in which students work closely with their tutors or mentors. In the group supervision, it's like the usual studio conduct, but compared to our previous model, compared to individual supervision, students share the same studio settings and can observe their peers' design processes. Independent, intermittently juried model is executed only in Turkey, in which there are only it includes 3 assessment juries. Tutors may not provide feedback to their students other than these juries. For topic assignments, there are 4 general strategies that you can see here, like the announcement of a general topic, students deciding on their topic, the faculty or the studio tutors announcing a shared topic or a theme. Tutors announce the theme, students choose their topics, so they are tutors. This research process evolved actually into 3 stages. The first stage involved collecting qualitative and quantitative data. The data included competition entries, the jury reports, and the year a Department of Architecture graduated its first students and the number of students registered at the department yearly. For the analysis, it coded each entry with its university and its hometown, edition year, price category. For coding the 61 winners, it coded the theme, topic, and project area assignment strategies, the project location, and in terms of the third analysis consisted of the content analysis of jury comments on winning projects by using qualitative data analysis software Max QDA 2020. And then it visualized all these coding via the Tableau program. This table explains the coding used for the topic and theme assignment and also for the project area assignment strategies. All the winning projects has been coded with these themes and the project area codes. Now let's proceed to the visualization of the winning projects and for the entries. As you scan the QR code or click the link in the paper, you will have access to this visualization. The first image represents the cities, including the number of entries and the number of universities. There's one thing interesting in this interactive visualization. When you click on No, that means without a prize, 3 cities emerges: Istanbul, Ankara, and Izmir. Can we speak of other geographies? This visualization represents the rising number of schools and the Turkey competition entries. The third one represents the universities with the number of entries and the winning projects separately, and you can eliminate or choose the city which you would like to focus on. On the third image, the third visual represents the schools which are sorted by the percentage of participation based on the number of graduates eligible to participate. There's something interesting. Does a certain atmosphere in these schools encourage students to participate in competitions, those which are on the top of the list, but from several schools that we can see, even though they have many graduates, they're not so much willing to participate. The 5th, 6th, and the 7th visuals represent the correlation with the student models, winners, prize category, and years. Details are included in the paper about this. And then the relationship between the project area. Now let's move on to our conclusions briefly. Conclusions. There are niche or other practices, not only in the studio theme assignment, like a broader studio theme requiring students to determine their project location, and architectural urban program defining an urban scale for the diploma or group projects. There are regime practices in Turkey. The assigned topic and theme is the building program, and the project site is defined by the studio. It's a regime. There are other geographies for the
Sorry for the technical issues. Now I move on the presentation.
niche or other practices, not only in the studio theme assignment, like a broader studio theme requiring students to determine their project location and architectural urban program defining an urban scale for the diploma or group projects. There are regime practices in Turkey. The assigned topic and theme is the building program, and the project site is defined by the studio. It's a regime. There are other geographies. For the analyzed 7 years, most of the winning projects were from Ankara, Istanbul, and Izmir. There are others in the entries. Graduates from certain schools tend to enter the competition more often than graduates from other schools. Students from numerous schools with at least 20 entries have never been a laureate in this period. The model of independent and intermittently juried supervision is a regime practice peculiar to Turkey. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you, Işıl, for this nice presentation. I think Archiprix is a very descriptive and leading competition in the architecture environment of Turkey. So it was very eye-opening, let's say. I think the next one is Pınar ÇALİŞIR ADEM and Bahar AKTUNA about architecture for action, reflections on the other in design studio. So
hello and welcome to our presentation on architecture for action. In this presentation, we address the topic of the other, spatially and pedagogically, through our teaching work in a design studio with a focus on discrimination. Othering is an ethical issue that calls for action, and its topological translation is based on spatial empowerment. After we present the studio conditions where we tackled the problem of othering, we evaluate student research, design, and praxis. Finally, we critically discuss the limits of this studio and our teaching methods and processes. Ethics is internal to architecture as the framework of social life, and ethical values are always incorporated into the poetic process. Architectural studio is the starting point for the practice of those ethical values through ethical action and topological representation. The Spatial Agency book by Nishat Awan and the others has become an essential guide in our action-oriented design investigations. Since architects are involved in the constraining structures that organize societies, they may act to reform these structures. Their action-oriented contribution mainly targets spatial empowerment, which translates passive subjects within space to active actors of space. Architectural Design 2 is a 6-credit studio course with an urban context and public building focus. The theme in spring 2021 added an apparent ethical dimension. To address discrimination, we ask questions like, how can architecture offer a design-based view to address spatial discrimination? How can architecture organize different scales of spatial empowerment of communities? The studio lasted 16 weeks with the plurality of voices. The studio contained 2 instructors, 17 students, and received various guest speakers and external critics. The guest speakers brought perspectives on spatial discrimination that unfolds in social, political, environmental, and historical terms. The class discussions, seminars, and student research led to the emergence of 17 topics. These include discrimination through social class, income, gender, species, age, occupation, race, ethnicity, and religion. The project sites are distributed in Turkey, but they condense in Istanbul. We consider 3 modes of engaging with the issue: research as theory, design as poetics, and spatial agency as praxis. We propose a model in which these 3 modes converge with the empowerment triad of spatial judgment, mutual knowledge, and critical awareness. A discussion environment, exchange of information, and in-depth understanding on the issue were necessary for the first step of action-oriented design. Theoretical knowledge came from primary and secondary sources, and these helped to form a theoretical background for each student to build on their design approach. The theoretical discussion also included an action perspective. The students considered inclusive design methods, forms of equality, and ways of funding action design. Our work was limited to this studio environment. An important device of theoretical analysis was mind mapping. While examining the topic of the other, students realized that seemingly unrelated issues were connected to each other as they visualized these networks. Students were free to explore various methods and scales of mapping based on their topic of interest.
Students practiced various spatial strategies toward topological empowerment of communities. The participation bridge, the zipper, the third space, I have an idea for Fikirtepe, an alternative pedestrian road, growing a community, zero waste center and recycling park, a better Istanbul for stray dogs, music and activity center for children, the organic meeting, othering women, the birds in the city, the center of the world, empathy space, experimental play, the puzzle facility, and a living space for the Yazidi community have imagined topologies for empowerment. Visibility, security, ambiguity, flexibility, and creating common spaces were more effectual than just mere formal and functional concerns. To reveal how students operated as spatial agents, studio proposals were evaluated with the operations of spatial agency. Now we will explain projects meeting all 6 relevant criteria in detail. The zipper proposed small-scale modules which formed a large-scale canopy. The delightful indeterminacy entailed a vision of sleeping in the park as a potential regular activity for all people. The project subverted and opposed private land use and occupied a private area for communing and public living. The third space appropriated an unused block. A series of courtyard spaces set the indeterminate base of usage that ranged from political protests to performing arts. The proposal employed color symbolism to make queer space visible. It created a center of solidarity, resistance, and protest that opposes the dominance of sameness. I have an idea for Fikirtepe provided a three-dimensional tectonic frame adaptable to various contextual conditions. The project made life visible rather than dwelling on the ruins of the past. These spaces of resistance subverted and opposed the destructive forces of the gentrification. Growing a community appropriated a derelict plot. It envisioned a cumulative structure from cubic cells, which spread to the nearby public park, and the facades of the surrounding tall apartments. The project aimed to form an intergenerational community network and to subvert heavy urbanization that alienates people from their environment and each other. Organic meeting appropriated an existing parking area. Greenery area of the project generated spontaneous spaces. Vertical agriculture towers for workshops got people's attention and made the community gathering place visible. The subversion and opposition of space depended on the creation of a public space in a high-value capital area with a view for the neighbors. Empathy space appropriated an existing parking lot and created networks between people through public activities. The scaffolding structure conceived an indeterminate space of actions and let the users interfere with the design. The structure had mobile units for spontaneous public needs. Subversion and opposition of space dependent on the creation of a common ground for people in dispute. Experimental play appropriated the underused road refuge and the derelict mansion to create an uninterrupted path connecting 3 schools and the mansion. The imagined place allows children to form and reform space and thus subvert the architectural space through mobile spatial elements. The subversion of space also dependent on the creation of space without supervisors or adult rules.
In our studio, the question of the other has become a point of reflection on architectural design and practice as a matter of concern rather than as a matter of fact. Topologies of empowerment depend on the spatial agency of designers. overcoming othering, making the other visible, giving voice to the other, and facilitating opportunities of empowerment require critical design thinking. The imagination of inclusive, plural, transformative spaces in the realm of design studio against the mutability of real-world architecture enables students to confront ethical implications of their design acts. We thank all students, invited speakers for seminars, and guest critics for their contributions.
Thank you, Pınar Hanım and Bahar Hanım. It was a very nice range of projects for me. Next presentation is from Fatih US about integration of computer technology in architectural education in the case of Turkey. I'm very curious for the presentation.
Dear participants, I will talk about the integration of computer technology in architectural education in the case of Turkey. In this study, universities in Turkey that adopt digital technologies to architectural departments have been determined and their approaches have been revealed. For this, firstly, the place and importance of digital technologies in architecture and architectural education were explained. Secondly, the main periods of comparative design, presentation, and manufacturing courses in architectural departments in Turkey were examined. Lastly, different innovative or the others applications were examined in detail and inferences were made. Computer technologies first enter architecture only as drawing support under the name computer-aided design and computer-aided manufacture. But in recent years, technologies such as virtual reality, augmented reality, computational design, robotic manufacturing, artificial intelligence are involved in architecture not only as a tool for representation, but also as supportive tools for design and production. Computer technologies in architectural education in Turkey. In the 2020-2021 academic year, there are architectural departments in 57 state universities, 44 foundation universities, and 13 universities from third group, which make a total of 114 universities, table 1. It was found that the architectural departments of 110 universities in Turkey, whose information can be accessed from the internet, have similar approaches in the integration of digital technologies into education. Considering the intensities of computer-aided drawing, presentation, design, and production courses in the departments, it has been determined that there are mostly drawing and presentation courses, and these courses usually start in the second or third semesters. Computer technologies in architectural education in Turkey. When we look at integration of architectural departments, slightly different innovative approaches have been identified. These innovative approaches, the others will be examined and evaluated under these 4 headings. 1. Digital presentation techniques. 2. Computer-aided design. 3. Computer-aided manufacturing. 4. Supporting courses. First, digital presentation techniques. The courses in this group, which are defined as computer-aided drawing and design courses, are compulsory in 52 universities in the first year and 54 universities in the second year. What we call the others is the practice of including digital presentation techniques courses in the content of courses such as architectural expression techniques or technical drawings since the first semester. Thus, presentation techniques are not separated into analog and digital, but both are taught together. Programs such as AutoCAD 3D Studio Max and Photoshop, which have been widely used in the field of architecture in the last 20 years are used in many universities in digital presentation and expression techniques courses. However, universities with innovative approaches use building information modeling programs such as REVIT, Archiprix, and Allplan on the other hand. Some of these compulsory and elective courses are visible here. 2. Computer-aided design. Computer-aided design-oriented courses such as computational design or design computing are compulsory in 6 universities and elective in 6. In the course, students are taught the concept of computation and its applications in architectural design, and the reflection of the digital design, fabrication, and production technologies on architectural design are shown. By giving information about the geometric modeling software Rhinoceros and the algorithmic software Grasshopper, applied information is taught using laser cutters. Courses like parametric design, algorithmic and generative design, building information modeling, artificial intelligence are usually given as elective courses in the last years of education. Under the title Computer-Aided Design, there are also these different elective courses that are just put among elective courses without any content in few universities. 3. Computer-Aided Manufacturing. Computer-aided manufacturing or digital fabrication courses are available at 11 universities as elective and are usually added to the curriculum in the 3rd or 4th grades. Rhinoceros and Grasshopper are taught with the scope of these courses. Models created with the software are turned into the physical models using CNC and laser devices. The names of these courses are as follows. Computer for supporting courses. Courses such as information technologies and communication method under this heading are common courses in which the skills of writing in the computer environment, preparing tables, creating graphics, and making presentation are taught. Apart from this general approach, there are also elective courses such as computer programming with Pascal, media, and representation tools. Conclusion. With this study, it's clear that most universities providing architectural education in our country have not yet integrated computer technologies. Despite being a minority, the universities that we call the others exhibit innovative approaches. The integration of compulsory computer-aided design and presentation courses from the beginning of architectural education, the increase of such compulsory courses, and the addition of many elective courses can be considered as foremost important developments. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Fatih Bey. Very interesting subject for me personally too. The next presentation is from Pilar BARBA and Sofía Montealegre. Sorry for the bad pronunciation, but I hope it is close to fine. The subject is Your Home Through to Mine, and the stage is yours.
Good morning. I will present the work Your Home Through Mine by Pilar BARBA and Sofía Montealegre from the University of Chile. In the context of the health crisis caused by COVID-19 pandemic, we took charge of the bachelor degree workshop in remote mode. We propose to work on one of the topics less addressed in the undergraduate program and more present for our students, their own home. The pandemic was put every space in our homes to the test, allowing us to identify its deficiencies, its surplus spaces, and its opportunities. Under this intensive look, we design a pedagogical experience that bases on self-observation, allow the student to move from the architect to client and from the client to architect. Each personal analysis had to be communicated as an architectural assignment to colleague, and in this way, the other would be closer but the distant of colleague architect, and by similar experience as a quarantine inhabitant. In parallel to this process of self-observation, different critical approaches to the idea of the house were developed. First, emblematic houses by Le Corbusier, Lina Bobardi, Mies van der Rohe, Frank Lloyd Wright, among others, were analyzed. All of them were already known to a student in their passage through the career, but this time they studied them to assess what could be like to live in them in health quarantine. This study made it possible to identify both the shortcomings of the idealized example of architecture and to promote self-observation of the ways of life of each study, trying to write their personal model of life into this dwelling. In the following units, we propose to do the same exercise, but on utopian and futuristic models, such as the impossible dwelling proposed by Mr. Fowler and Kisho Kurokawa, or those dystopian found in series such as Black Mirror, along with assessing the ability to sustain their own lives in pandemic. In each case, the student had to propose their own utopian housing models. These two units were accompanied by readings such as Montaigne's Casa Collage, essays that brought into discussion housing as an object of study little address in the architectural discipline, and Le Corbusier's Una Pequeña Casa, an essay written from the construction of the house of his mother. Naturally, along with this study and self-observation, difference arose with the traditional architectural model of both of the examples studied and thus established in the norm and scheme of social housing, where houses are designed of the number of inhabitants and family structure, which has quickly questioned by the personal experience of each student architect. Families of close relatives, single mothers, immobilized grandparents, families of one, families ungrown and shrunk, depending on the day of the week. In this workshop, which we call En Casa del Herrero, Cuchillo de Palo, we recognized ourselves as an architect could make little use for our own experience to design someone else. And we discover what without understanding our own needs, we will hardly to be able to design for others. That we do not know and try to pigeonhole in non-existent model. Each particular case, each other allowed us to reflect on the different ways of living, social and economic difference, unstable families, structures, loneliness, overcrowding, good and bad architectural solution. It was shown how in one person housing that is being mass produced in the center of the cities, one experiences the lack of a space and conflicts with neighbors for the development of the basic activities of any student, from studying to exercise, taking care of the pets, or creating vegetables garden. An important change has how to do his critical analysis with respect to privacy and how to put the ethics of care into practice in the process. The role play of client and architect as equal, of direct and fluid communication brought out in the student a great commitment to the project and passion for the job well done. According to their own testimonies, this attachment was not found in large museum projects, stadium and megastructures, which are usually the subject of the advanced courses. This commitment to the scale of the project and the experience of the inhabitant made is possible to reduce the distance generated by the online experience of teaching, achieving a fluidity and relationship that is difficult to reproduce in other educational spaces, limited by social distance and virtuality. This presentation seeks to share the experience lived in the workshop exercise of the semester, to expose the reflection from the personal experience of self, mother and daughter, architects and teachers, located in pandemic. This workshop became a safe space where our students open the doors of their own homes and invited us to know their intimacy and to invite us to tell our own experience and transform them into knowledge for our discipline. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation. The next presentation is from Alperen ALAN, Space Perception and Awareness in Architecture, the Simulation Research on METU, METU, Faculty of Architecture, Canteen. We are looking forward for your presentation.
Research Assistant Alperen ALAN from Beykent University, Istanbul. Today, I'm going to represent my study on space perception and awareness in architecture, the simulation research on architectural changes in architectural environment. Space as a term has many various and different definitions. As one of these definitions, spaces are the place where we have been in it or where we are restricted by a determined frame. The interaction between people and space can be in different ways, like psychological and physical interactions. The main objective of this study is to investigate the architectural significance of the perception of space by analyzing these ways of interaction to make a preview of the extent to how much architects and architecture students understand space. The interaction with space comprises meaningful communication elements beyond the person as a subject and space as an object. For instance, an architect, when designing space, they think about the perception of that space. However, they could be receiving various emotional feedback which they don't expect. Space identity is another main subject for the importance of space perception. Perception is the first step of interaction when users face with the space. But after perception, the receiver starts identifying that space in their terms. Identification is one step further after the interaction. First, people interact with space, then identify it, and finally interiorizing it. Space becomes a person's internal memory after their identification of space. For instance, Atatürk Cultural Center in Taksim demolished for the renovation in 2018, as you can see on pictures. But the people who are using Taksim Square every day as a route recognize that emptiness after demolition, and their minds are searching for the building in that area. Then it illustrates how space becomes a memory object, and demolition of Atatürk Cultural Center affects people's perception via its non-existence. Is it the task of architects to be aware of the architectural environment? Yes, the responsibilities of architects and architecture students towards the environment are inevitable. As a case study, I choose METU Architecture Faculty Canteen as a location. Because Canteen is a place with functional intensive users, and the relationship that users establish almost every day with that space is strong. The main subject of this study is the extent to which changes in space are realized and perceived. To what extent architects and architecture students perceive especially architectural changes in the spaces around them, and to what extent they are aware of this is the main purpose of this study. Virtual reality technology has been preferred in this study. The content was modeled in two different ways, in Revit as it is and with a number of architectural changes. After that, 3D panoramic render image was screened on iPhone 6s Plus model smartphone in VR box glasses. These two virtual environments have been shown to the users, and they have tried to measure how much they realize these architectural changes. 20 volunteers were selected from METU architectural students. In the space Canteen, primarily architectural elements were determined, and it was decided which ones would change. The load-bearing column at the corner of the buffet section was removed. The length of the load-bearing shape wall was changed. The window area was shifted towards outer space. The two high tables and seats were removed in the middle of the space, and lastly, suspended ceiling in the buffet part was removed. The users are shown in the first environment, current content studies, and the second environment where these changes are made in virtual reality environment. As you can see here, the renders from the how glass users see the Canteen. They can rotate the VR box 360 degrees and see the Canteen area. After being shown to users in two locations in the VR environment, 3 questions were asked. The first of these questions was, which architectural changes did you recognize? And the second one, please give a number of 1 to 5 according to your recognition order. And third, they were asked which place they preferred. As a result of the studies, various results have emerged. 16 out of 12 users realized that there was no column in the buffer part. 14 users realized the absence of the high tables in the middle of the space. 9 users realized absence of suspended ceiling in the buffer part. The second result is the first change that 9 people mostly first noticed was the absence of the high tables in the middle of space. Second most noticed change was absence of the column on the corner of the buffet. Thirdly most noticed change was change on the shear wall lengths. The third result is users indicate their most preferred space was the second one, with the 12 out of 20, the remaining 8 preferred the first space. As a conclusion, according to the result of the study, users' perceptions on architectural change depends on 2 critical factors: the distance and the interaction. The change that the users most noticed in the space were the changes that were closest to users. And the architectural element which user interact more than others is the most noticed to change. The second main result of study, students' most preference space was the second one, indicates that students choose the more open architectural spaces with less constructional elements, such as the column, suspended ceiling. In addition, the fact that users prefer the second space more often can be seen as an indication that architecture students are open to changes in this space. Although this study is not comprehensive enough to generalize, it can be seen as a preliminary study on space perception and awareness in architecture. Thank you very much for your attention. I would like to thank the organization committee of Livenarch Congress for giving this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Alper and Alan. It was a very focused presentation. The next presentation is from Ayşegül Yurtyapan Salimi and Gaye Anıl. The freedom of interior architecture in education, abstract thinking and learning by doing and the digital age.
Hello and welcome to Livenarch 2021. We are the presenters. I'm Ayşegül Yurtyapan Salimi and my partner Gaye Anıl. We come from Bilkent and Hacettepe backgrounds, and we are working in Near East University. And based on our practice and based on our works, we wanted to do this presentation. The topic is freedom of interior architecture in education, abstract thinking, learning by doing, and the digital age. What makes architectural education special and privileged is that it focuses on learning by doing and experiencing. Since we have a short lack of time, I would like to mainly focus on what we want to say and the result of our work. If you want to read more of our work, please read the full paper. We are starting to explain from École des Beaux-Arts and Bauhaus Applied School of Arts and how studio education came to what we know as in now. École des Beaux-Arts is the first well-established architecture school that provides the closest education to the method applied in today's design studios and plays an important role in the development of architectural design education because education and practice are integrated with the school and the studio itself. Also, it is important that the first studio system was a studio system and the jury evaluation was in this period. It was believed that the end product should describe the process more. After École des Beaux-Arts, which has been dominating architectural education for a long time, weakened with the spread of the modernist movement. The German curriculum from the Bauhaus was influenced by the first half of the 20th century, and the educational model replaced the academic tradition. In Bauhaus, student-teacher interaction and teaching methods with this interaction was gained. Removing the wall between applied art and fine arts made a big difference. Designs were prepared in order to meet the requirements of the industry, and prototypes were made. Production was developed in the factories, and society had the opportunity to use designs. While we can, if we want to focus on today's studio education should have a more dynamic structure. To be more prone to the perception of the Z generation, it can be supported by technology. More resources and possibilities are available, but using material and the experimental process seems to be lost. This experience is replaced by the digital platforms which the Z generation uses frequently. There have been disconnections in the mental bond communication between the master and the apprentice. The purpose of knowledge transfer and professional orientation has seemed to be lost. This also caused the decline in the professional knowledge of the master or academician, we can say. The studios what we can do is that the studios can be organized with the innovations in the education curriculum to keep up with the time. The point we want to draw attention is to, while the effects of École des Beaux-Arts and Bauhaus schools continue in the background learning of art and architecture-based schools, we somehow also lost them. The inability to make sketches and therefore the design seems to lose its values. At this point, the design program commands the design with as far as the user has the ability to use it. Hand drawing or manual work is important because it has the equality of a fingerprint. It's like a person's signature. When we look at it, manual hand drawing, which seemed to be simple, actually helps the student to reveal the creation in their brain directly without using any other tool. As a result, what we want to say is, when we research how École des Beaux-Arts and how Bauhaus taught, and what these both schools, these big pioneers of design schools, and how they came to our studios, we found out that we should go and reflect all our things into two questions. And this is, how can we teach better? And this question led us to question, how do people learn today? In this context, learning with multiple methods could be applied in studios. It can also be good to make the Z generation aware of the transitions in between learning and knowing. So what we thought we could do is adapt the technology and the use of new materials. Additional functions to the studios could be supported by practical application, or the scope of the studios could be transformed. Multifunctional learning can also be achieved by integrating the internships available in the interior architecture schools into the courses. A part of the studio lessons could be held in the classroom while working actively in a place in the continuation of the course could also be available. Active and familiar, the students could be active in the market and familiar with it. Mutual communication will also cause the academician to refresh their knowledge as well. With the spread of the COVID-19 virus and everything that we've been going through in the past 1.5 years showed us that the inability of the live studios and design and architectural schools to be online caused a lot of problems for all of us. So lastly, but not leastly, we want to say that what we want to support is the survival of the techniques from École des Beaux-Arts and Bauhaus schools, which underline today's schools. Also, it aims not to move away from the master and student relationship logic of these schools, but to also integrate and continue today's digital opportunities in the live studios as well. Thank you for listening to us.
Thank you for all the presentations. This was the last presentation of the day, of the session. Do we have a Q&A session?
Actually, yes, but no, I can't see any questions here. But I think I have one to Fatih US and maybe to the last presenter. And I want to ask that, what do you think about the future relations of Turkish architectural education system with digital fabrication, and what is waiting us? And also, what should we do to catch up the new technology? Thanks in advance.
You ask me?
Yes.
Yes. They said, they ask, I understand, computational design affect architectural department. It's not enough. For example, Just I explain conclusion. Computer technology are included within the content of courses such as presentation techniques, architectural drawing, design geometry and visualization techniques, and computer-aided drawing and design education begins with them in the first semester. The compulsory design course is added to the curriculum as a compulsory courses in the first semester and thus effective use of digital technologies in the architectural design encourage. Among the compulsory courses are computational design, parametric modeling, and digital fabrication and architecture portfolio design courses. With the approach, it can be said that all students are expected to be aware of current computer technologies and to adapt them to their architectural projects. There are also many elective courses where students can develop themselves at the intersection of architecture and technology. These are courses such as building information modeling, parametric design, robotic and production technologies, architectural animation, computer programming in architecture, web design also, digital production, artificial intelligence, energy performance analysis, building cost analysis, etc. We can say, I think.
Thank you very much. Also, I think Ayşegül wants to say something also. You can open your microphone. And
hello, I wanted to answer my part of the question also. Because the session was short, so we only could say a little part of it, but with my partner, what we think is in the future, we have to change our education model a bit and take some from the past and also add something from the new. So from the new, we have to catch up with the Z generation and how they use technology and everything that's possible right now. Also, with the factories or with the with manufacturing goods, it would be good if we integrate these kind of things to our education as well. First of all, that will make our education rich, and second of all, it will give a bigger perception to the student. Also, it will not have the academician to be stuck in one place, but they will also refresh their memories, refresh their knowledge, and it would be better, I think. And the first part of the question I couldn't hear very clearly, so I could only answer the second part. And thank you again for listening.
Thank you very much. Is there any more questions or comments? You can raise your hand or write it in Q&A in the below. Mr. Derinboğaz, I think that's all. We don't have any questions. So if you like to, we can end this session here.
Yes, thank you everyone for presenting. It was a very diverse set of presentations. I learned a lot. Hope to see you in physical world.